here in the teaching center, those of you that are coming in and through the YouTube, and we want to welcome each and every one of you from around the world, because YouTube reaches the whole world. And we want this message to be a message for the whole world. And this gospel of the kingdom, the good news of the kingdom, shall be preached in all the world as a witness to all nations, and then the end will come. So we're in that gospel age, that good news age, when we're preaching the gospel. We're going to be good newsers. So I have good news today about the second coming, and we're going to be looking today at all the different things that Adonai has done. And we are going to be looking here at the blueprint for the last days. And we will be in number 30. We did all this tonight. If you didn't catch last night, catch it real fast, okay? Okay. Catch it really, really fast. We studied all kinds of good stuff yesterday, last night. How many had a good time last night? If you weren't here or you're watching it for the first time, catch it. Again, we're here in Roswell, New Mexico. And our study today is Blueprint for the Last Days again. And I want you to turn to Leviticus chapter 23, verse 1. Now, we're going to do a little catch up because we did have some questions afterwards. And there was two main questions that we are going to catch up on. One is on the Sabbath. Pastor asked me if I could do some things a little bit more on the Sabbath. Yes. And then we're also going to do, I think it was Brother Isaac that asked about Passover. And so we do have a chart that we're going to be passing out. And so this chart is going to be a chart on Yeshua and Passover. And so we'll be looking at that over here. But I want you to go to Leviticus chapter 23, verse 1. And watch what it says. Speak to the sons of Israel. The sons of Israel in Hebrew is Bnei Israel. The sons of Israel. Now, a lot of people really don't understand Israel. What Israel is the people of Elohim. The people of Elohim. And Elohim, remember we're going to do catch up all this. Elohim is what the King James calls God. Of course, God is Old English, and Gut in German also, and in other different languages. But we want to learn from a Hebraic model. So we want to learn what the Hebrew words are, what the Hebrew titles are. We want to disciple you. And so, speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, these are my appointed times. The word appointed time there in the Hebrew is moedim. Everybody say moedim. Moedim. A moed is an appointed time. The moedim are appointed times, plural. Now remember, the moedim were given to us by Adonai on the fourth day of creation in Genesis 1:14. Where he says to us there that the sun and the moon, the stars, they are otot, they are signs, they are pointers, and they point. The sun, the moon, and the stars point to something. You know, when you're driving from Albuquerque, I think Vaughn is the last stop before you get over here, and you're driving that long drive, that long slow drive, and you're driving and driving and driving, especially in the middle of the night. You're driving in the middle of the night, and you're coming into Roswell, and there's two things that are going on in your body. Two things that are going in your body. And the first thing is you're hungry. You're thirsty. The second thing, your wife or the kids need the bathroom. And all of a sudden you come into Roswell and you see that giant golden arches. What do the golden arches mean? It means food, it means drink, and it means bathrooms. That golden arches, that big M for McDonald's, is a sign. It's a logo. It's a pointer. It tells you. In fact, it says restrooms this way, drinks and all this kind of stuff. The golden arches are a pointer. And in a sense, that's what the sun, moon, and stars are about. They're pointers. We don't worship the sun, moon, and stars. Nobody has ever eaten the golden arches. You don't eat, that's a sign. You eat and you use what's inside. And in a sense, what the sun, moon, and stars point to us, and they point Israel, because remember what Israel is. Israel is the nation that Adonai chose to bring the gospel and the Messiah to the rest of the world. Israel is not chosen so that they could have everything for themselves. No, Israel is a beggar showing other beggars where the food is. By the way, that's what every one of us should be, right? How many of you were a beggar one time? And we got filled. We got life. There's other beggars out there that need life. And we need to show them where the food is. And where's the food? The food is in the Word. The food is Yeshua. He is the bread of life. He is the Mayim Chaim. He's the living water. And so the appointed times of Yahweh, and like I said last night, they belong to Yahweh. They're not Israel's. They do not belong to Israel. They're not Jewish feasts. And it bugs me when people say, oh, the Jewish feasts. We don't follow Jewish feasts. I'm not asking you to follow Jewish feasts. I'm asking you to follow the feast, the appointed times of Yahweh, because He appointed them. He appointed them. And it says, which you are to proclaim as sacred assemblies. The Moedim, the appointed times, are sacred assemblies. They're times for holy. Sacred is the word kadosh, mikra, kadosh in Hebrew, and a kadosh means set apart. And then, of course, we have the word assembly, which we're going to see means a convocation, things like that. These are the appointed feasts of Yahweh, the appointed times, the Moedim, the sacred assemblies you are to proclaim at their appointed times. And each one has an appointed time. They're Moedim. They're sacred assemblies, Mikra Kodesh. These are the actual words that are used over here. And of course, the appointed times are dates, reservations, and appointments. And when you make a date, when you make a reservation, when you make an appointment, you have to keep them. Well, what's different about these appointed times is that these are times that Adonai makes with you. You don't make with Him. These are the holy days, the set apart days. By the way, these are the only holy days in Scripture. There are no other holy days than what Scripture says. Now, people call Christmas a holiday. They call Easter. The Jewish people have other days that they call holy days, but none of them are holy days. Hanukkah is not a holy day. Purim is not a holy day. Yeah, those are celebrations. Those are like 4th of July celebrations. But they are not holy days. They are not holidays. These are the days that Adonai says, I want to meet with you. It's not when we say, I want to meet with Adonai. We could meet with Him all the time, every day. But 7 times a year, He wants to meet with you, and not only with you alone, but He wants to meet with you in a crowd. He wants an assembly, a holy, a set apart assembly. And again, a Mikra Kodesh is a meeting, a convocation. And in fact, this could be what some people call convention. We're talking about convention. Think of it, a lot of congregations, a lot of denominations have once a year convention. Some denominations have a fall revival and a spring revival. And where they want all the people to come in. In a sense, Adonai has that already. Why are we reinventing the wheel? Why are we telling Adonai what your conventions, your your convocations, your meetings, oh, that's the law. But this is grace. This is liberty. Wait a second, if you don't go to the convention, then they could kick you out of their denomination. What is grace and liberty about that? That's more law than what Adonai gave us. This is real grace. And it's a rehearsal. And think of this. Amikra Kodesh, we are commanded to meet 7 times during the year. Now, the musicians here have been at their craft for many, many years. When you first pick up a violin, you get the violin and you go that violin and go. But then what you do is you practice, you rehearse. And you have times when you get your teacher, your tutor, and you go and they teach you, oh no, this is the way you hold it, this is the way you stand, and you know, all these different techniques, and you know, these are the chords, and this is what you do. And all of a sudden, 20 years later, the curtains open in Carnegie Hall, and there you are with a symphony, and your sweet melody. It takes years of rehearsal time. But you know what? Every time we have Shabbat, like today, we're rehearsing. This is a rehearsal. Because one day, sometimes we might do things a little bit wrong, but one day, we're going to be with Him forever and ever in an eternal Shabbat. Think of it, every time that father selected that lamb, brought it home, the kids washed it and took care of it, and the moment that father got that knife and slit his throat, that was a rehearsal. Every time they did that, they were rehearsing. They were rehearsing that innocent blood must be shed to cover. Every time the shofar blows, every time you see a sukkah, a tabernacle, a booth for the Feast of Sukkot, Feast of Tabernacles, it's a rehearsal that we're going to be in the millennium with Adonai. Every feast is a rehearsal. We're just doing it for practice. We're just practicing. Today we're practicing being together. And can you imagine that day when Adonai will be our eternal King, and we're going to be with Him forever and ever. So rehearse good. And don't keep away from the rehearsals, because if you keep away from the rehearsals, you know what happens? You won't get to Carnegie Hall. The Moedim, the Mikra Kodesh, are one weekly appointment. Every person in the world, whether they're a believer or not, whether they're Jew, Muslim, Christian, whether they're Buddhist, whether they are atheist, every person in the whole world, from Adam to the last man that will be born, has an appointment with Adonai once a week. All mankind has an appointment. Now, most of them aren't keeping them. Only those that are following Torah are keeping that one appointment, and that's Shabbat. We'll talk about that in a second. And then there's 7 yearly appointments, 4 in the spring and 3 in the fall. So there are 7 appointments that Adonai wants us to keep. They're rehearsals. Every one of these appointments rehearses something, and they are all tutors to us. They all teach us something. And of course, we're going to kind of focus on the Sabbath. There are 6 days when you may work, but the seventh day is a Shabbat. Everybody say it would be Shabbat. Of rest. A day of sacred assembly. So Shabbat is a day of what? sacred assembly. It's an appointment. That's why every Shabbat, please don't be like what most of Christianity is. Well, I'm too tired to go to church today. Or I don't have time. I gotta, today I have to watch for the next day, or this, and I have to do this and that. To most of Christianity, things are optional. That's the way it has been for us all the time. Things were optional. Well, let me tell you, Adonai doesn't go by optional. Adonai doesn't go by smorgasbord. Adonai goes by, this is what I want for you. I want to bless you in these. And it says it's a Shabbat of rest, a Shabbat of ceasing. The word rest means to cease. A day of sacred assembly, you are not to do any work, avodah, wherever you live. This is a Sabbath of Yahweh, wherever you live. And this is not just for Israel, this is not just for the Jews, this is for all mankind. The Shabbat belongs to the world. And remember, in the great white throne judgment, when all the unbelievers are all going to be at the great white throne judgment. We will not be at the great white throne judgment. That's only for believers. And it says Adonai is going to open the books. There's not books just for the believers. There's books for the unbelievers. And he's going to open up the books. And his hand is going to go through the names. And it says other books were opened, which were the deeds which they did. Now, what they did is going to be matched up with Torah. And think of it. When Adonai made the Sabbath, he gave it to Adam. The sons of Adam are wired to keep the Sabbath. A lot of people don't realize how we're wired by Adonai. We're not sons of a monkey. We didn't evolve from an amoeba. Yeah, I know a lot of people do act like chimps, but we're not monkeys. We were made in the image of Adonai. And because we're in his image, all mankind was created. A lot of people don't realize Hitler was made in the image of Adonai. You ever thought of him in the image of Adonai? He was a beautiful little baby. Think of Hitler as this cute little baby, a cute little toddler, just like all our little children that we've brought, our grandchildren. Hitler was one of those beautiful little image of Adonai persons, souls. And of course, by his choice, he decided not to follow the way of Adonai, not to follow the Sabbath, not to follow Torah, but to actually come against it and come against the people that Adonai had chosen to bring it to him into the world. And so Adonai has given us the Sabbath. I want you to even right now start thinking the Sabbath is a gift to you. Look at the Sabbath as a precious gift. The institution of the Sabbath was in Genesis 2:1. Go with me to Genesis 2:1. It says, thus the heaven and the earth were completed. Completed, again, this is on the end of the sixth day, were completed with all their array. On the seventh day, Elohim had completed the work he had been doing. He ceased. You see that word right there? In Hebrew that says Shabbat. He ceased. He Shabbated. On the seventh day, Shabbat is the seventh day. Shabbat is not the first day. Shabbat is the seventh day. And it says that he Shabbated, he ceased on the seventh day after all the work he had been doing. Elohim blessed the seventh day and made it kadosh, made it holy. Because on that day he ceased, Shabbat again, all the work of his hands. And so the Shabbat is a creation element. If you are a creationist, and I am a creationist, I am one of those guys, and by the way, we are slowly dying off. A lot of my pastor friends, in fact, we had a beautiful, beautiful brother in our congregation that left. And the reason he left is because he believed in what's called theistic evolution. Theistic evolution means that you believe in evolution like the world does, but maybe Adonai is the one that did it. And we've been here billions and billions of years, but it was Adonai. No. I believe in a 7-day creation. That it took 6 days of the world turning around, the earth turning around in a 24-hour period for Adonai to make what he made. And the seventh day, he blessed it and he set it apart. And he says, you may work all these days, but the seventh day, it's different. Today is different. From sundown last night to sundown tonight, it's different. It's not the same. It's not common. You know, the opposite of holy is not sin. The opposite of holy is not iniquity. The opposite of holy is not bad or whatever. The opposite of holy is common. Common. There are 6 common days, and there's one holy day a week. You may work for those 6 days, but on the 7th day, because Adonai hallowed it, he blessed it, and he separated it. He separated it, not we, not man, not a church, not the Pope, not, anybody in Brooklyn or Utah or any place else. Rome. It was Adonai who set it apart. And that setting apart makes it different. It's a sacred day. We've lost sacredness. We've lost, what it means to be holy. What is holy? Holy means to set something apart. Now, everybody, the majority of you ladies, you have holy dishes. You have common dishes, maybe plasticware, maybe, they give us the paper plate, or the plastic stuff, that stuff that has like a little burn spot because it was right next to the oven or whatever, and if it breaks, it cracks, you throw it away. That's common dishes, common cups, but you all have your holy dishes. Now the word holy isn't a holy word. The word holy is a common word. It's a word, generic word. The word holy, or your holy dishes, are the ones that are behind the glass. Any of you want to have one of these sideboards or one of these things with glass doors and you have your holy dishes there? Those are the ones that you only use when your mother-in-law comes. When you have a special guest, And those are back to some people never use their holy dishes. They're just there for pretty. But they're holy, they're set apart. You have them behind glass. You don't let the kids use those. You don't use that for the dish for your dog. Those are holy, those are set apart. And in a sense, that's what we should be. Adonai has set us apart. Let me tell you, you're special. If you're special, why are you out there being common like the world? By the way, your bodies are special. Your bodies are special. I just rented a real nice car. It's that real nice one. They saw me driving in this nice Charger. Wow, the guy at the McDonald's says, boy, that's a nice car. Oh, it cost me a lot of money. No, I just rented it. But one thing I would not do to that car is I would not get spray paint and put my name on it and or my girlfriend's name on it or so and so. Have you ever seen someone with tattoos and it says Rosie? I have a guy that has a big heart, Rosie. The only thing is he's married to Christine. You guys know what tattoos are? I'm kind of getting away from it, but you guys know what tattoos are? Yeah. Graffiti of the body. Yeah. A lot of people are graffiti. I know some of you have graffiti in your bodies. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't unscramble scrambled eggs. You know, that's the signs of the past, right? The sins of the past. You can't unscramble that. But for those of you that have not graffitied your body, don't graffiti your body, young people. Young lady, don't graffiti your body. Young man, don't graffiti your body. Because your body is kadosh. It's made in the image of Elohim. You don't graffiti your nice car. You don't graffiti your house. You might graffiti other people's houses. I know some of you guys probably did that. Don't raise your hands because you want to protect the guilty here. Somebody just graffitied our congregation that we put a brand new fence. A brand new fence with new stucco and all that, and they came and they graffitied it. We are holy. We are set apart. And Adonai has set apart a day. One day a week. You could do whatever you want in the common days. But on this day, nothing. Sacred assembly, you come and then you rest. Go home and rest. Go take a walk, go do this, go do that, but rest. Now the Sabbath is a part of the Ten Commandments. Now watch what Adonai says there in Exodus 20, verse 8. Remember the Sabbath. What does remember mean? Remember means that you forgot something. Well, wait a second. A lot of people say, Adonai gave us the Ten Commandments and he gave us the Sabbath. He did not give us the Sabbath in the Ten Commandments. In the Ten Commandments, he told us, remember the Sabbath. Why do you remember something? Because it's been forgotten. You see, our people were in captivity for 400 years. And in those 400 years, they had to work. Because remember, Pharaoh made him work. He had the whip. He made him work. But they were captives. They were slaves in the furnace of Egypt. And in those 400 years, they forgot the Sabbath. When was the Sabbath given? We saw Adam. Adonai gave the Sabbath to Adam. Adam was created in the sixth day. After he was created, Adonai gave him the Sabbath. And so Adam and his sons are to keep the Sabbath. You say, well, where does it say that? You know, one of the things that it doesn't say that. It doesn't say, Adam, you got to keep the Sabbath. But watch this. When Adonai created Adam, it says he blessed Adam, and which was the wedding. You know, he took Eve and made a male and female, and told them, the male and female, he blessed them, which is what we call the wedding ceremony, and then he says, be fruitful and multiply. They believe that commandment. In fact, that's a commandment everybody believes, or else we wouldn't be here. Have you ever thought of that? Everybody follows that commandment. By the way, it says, young people, young man, young lady, it says, he blessed them, then he said, be fruitful and multiply. He didn't say, be fruitful and multiply, then I want to be blessed and, no. The fruitful multiply comes after the blessing of Adonai. Always remember that. But over here we have, remember the Sabbath and keep it kadosh. Keep it holy, keep it set apart, keep it different, keep it special. For 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath for who? For Yahweh. For Yahweh, it says there. A Sabbath for Yahweh. And it says, Yahweh Elohim, you shall do no work on that day, neither you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your servants, men and women, nor your animals. That means, you know, your animal can't work on that day. Nor the alien living with you. Look at that. Even the foreigner, the alien, should not work. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heaven and the earth, and all that is these contain. But on the seventh day he ceased, Shabbat, there it is in Hebrew again, he Shabbated. That is why Yahweh has blessed the Sabbath and made it sacred, made it kadosh, made it holy. So in the Ten Commandments, in the covenant, in Sinai, Adonai is telling Israel, remember the Sabbath and remember from the time of Adam this way. From Adam this way. Because they had forgotten it. So you need, remember, so I'm going to tell you here, remember the Sabbath. Yes. You guys had forgotten about it. I had forgotten about it. I kept Sunday like everyone else. Yes. And I remember my aunt telling me, you know what, Grandma was Jewish and we need to start keeping the Sabbath. And my aunt became a Sabbath keeper. She kept the Sabbath. And she would tell me, and I remember when I came back from the military and I came back, on fire for Adonai and, preaching the gospel and things like that. And I remember we had a little contention and she says, come to visit our pastor. So I went to their pastor and I was arguing on Sunday, the law has been done away, all that stuff that we hear now, I would spew out. And he got the best of me. Why? Because all he says is, the word says, remember the Sabbath. And you know what? From that time on, conviction started coming in. And every time I teach the Ten Commandments, well, that's been done away with. The other ones are still there, but that conviction started coming in until I had to say, you know what? The word is right and I'm wrong. The word is right and my church is wrong. The word is right and my bishops, my teachers, all these people are wrong and the word is right. And I had to capitulate and follow the Sabbath. That's what I'm asking you to do. If you're a pastor and you're listening to this, I'm going to ask you especially that you come to the word and you remember this. It's been forgotten. It's not been taught in your seminaries, in your schools. It hasn't been taught, but I want you to return and come back to the Sabbath. And again, from creation to Sinai. But then we also have Exodus 31. And there in Exodus 31, it says there, and the sons of Israel, we call this the Vishamru. We actually sing it in our congregation. In fact, I don't know if I should get Michael and Richard to come up here and sing it, but this is called the Vishamru. And the Vishamru, we have this into a song. It says, and the sons of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, shall observe. The word keep is the word to guard. Shomer means to guard, guard it, to keep it in the sense of observe, and observe the Sabbath for all their generations to come. This is an eternal covenant. By the way, how long is eternity? How long is forever? Is there an expiration date on the Sabbath? I've never seen an expiration date on the Sabbath. Until Yeshua comes? No, Yeshua kept it. Oh, yeah. But what about Paul after the resurrection? No, he kept it. How about Peter? He kept it. Everybody kept the Sabbath. Because it's an eternal. It's not just pre-resurrection. It is pre and post-resurrection. And right now we are living in post-resurrection time. So it's still there. And watch what it says there. Between myself and the sons of Israel, this is a sign forever. Between me and the sons of Israel. Whoa, stop. Oh, look at that. Right there it is. It's for the Jews. It's for the sons of Israel. It's for them. Well, one of the things that, and this is a whole other topic that we're going to have to come back for another 3 days. Yeah. Once you become a believer in Yeshua, you get grafted into the olive tree of Israel. Now, you are not a Jew. It doesn't make you a Jew. A Jew will always be a Jew racially. You cannot make a Jew into a Gentile. You cannot make a Gentile into a Jew. But you see, Israel has nothing to do with Jewishness. Israel are the people of Elohim. In fact, the olive tree of Israel is anybody, Jew or Gentile, that believes in Yeshua. And if you believe in Yeshua here, if you've been baptized in Yeshua's name, then one thing is that you've been grafted into and you are sons of Abraham. Every one of you is a son of Abraham. Yes. And as a son of Abraham, we are partakers in the olive tree of Israel. So we, every believer in Yeshua, is Israel. And you know what? There are Jewish people that are not Israel. They've been cut off. They've been cut off. In fact, in Jeremiah's time, they were cut off. Paul talks about branches were cut off because of their unbelief. But Jewish people that don't follow Yeshua are not Israel. Gentiles from the nations that believe in Israel and believe in Yeshua and been baptized in Yeshua are Israel. Can you feature that? And so now it is a sign between Adonai and the sons of Israel. I am a son of Israel. So therefore, it is for me forever. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heaven and the earth. And he ceased again, Shabbat. He ceased and drew breath. When he had finished speaking to Israel on Mount Sinai, he gave him the tablets of the testimony, which are inscribed with the finger of Elohim. Now think of this. The tablets are inscribed by the finger of Elohim. And those tablets say what? Remember the Sabbath. The Sabbath is for the whole world. Watch what Isaiah 56, 1 through 8 says. Blessed is anyone who does these among and which clings to it, observing the Sabbath. Again, is anyone observing the Sabbath, not profaning it and abstaining from every evil deed. No foreigner, watch what it says, no foreigner, Gentile, alien, stranger, no foreigner adhering should say, Yahweh will utterly exclude me from his people. As for foreigners, strangers, Gentiles who adhere to Yahweh, to follow him, to love his name. How many of you love his name? How many love the name of Yahweh? This includes you. This is you, if you love his name. And become his servants who observe the Sabbath. We're observing the Sabbath, not profaning it, and cling to his covenant. These I shall lead to my holy mountain. That's a promise and a half. And bring him joyful in my house of prayer. And so their sacrifice will be accepted on my altar, and my house shall be called the house of prayer for all peoples. Adonai Yahweh shall gather the exiles of Israel, declares Yahweh. And so right now I believe Adonai is gathering from all nations. He's gathering his people. And some of us here who grew up as Gentiles, who grew up as the nations, have discovered that we have a heritage in Israel. When I did my DNA, it turned out that a portion of my DNA was Sephardic Jewish DNA. And all of a sudden I started doing the research and started looking up and finding out, wait a second, this real famous rabbi was my great-great-grandfather. This was my great-uncle. In fact, I traced my line in the 8th generation to a rabbi from Spain who actually converted to Catholicism, and they actually made him the bishop of the town. He was the chief rabbi. there in Burgos, Spain, and then he converted to Catholicism, because remember, if you didn't convert, you would be burnt or kicked out of Spain. And so he converted under strain, and he became one of the bishops there in Burgos, Spain. And this was from the Halibi family. In fact, Judah Halibi, I found out, was one of my great-grandfathers, and he wrote a lot of stuff. And so many of you here, in fact, some of you here, I would say are probably descendants of Jewish people that came, especially if you're Hispanic, if you're from Mexico, and there's a lot of Jewish people that came with Cortez, and that came with Oñate, and they came here to New Mexico. And again, they were Jewish, and then what happened is because of the Inquisition, because of torture, because of death, they capitulated and became Christians. We call them Anusim, those that were forced, and some of our ancestors are that. But even if you're just a regular, Heinz 57 Gentile, how many are Heinz 57 Gentiles here? A lot of us here. But anyways, we all have this idea where I've attached myself to him. I'm adhering to his word. I'm following, I love his name. I want to follow Shabbat. Let me tell you, you're part of the family. It's not them and us, it's all of us together as one. How about Yeshua? What did Yeshua say? And Yeshua said unto them, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. The word man there in the Greek, which this is written in Greek, is the word aned. And we get, you heard the word anthropos. Anthropos is anthropology, is the study of mankind. An anthropos is mankind. Watch what Yeshua says. The Sabbath was made for man, for mankind. But what is the word man in Hebrew? Anybody know what the word man in Hebrew is? Adam. The Sabbath was made for Adam and his descendants, and because he's the father of mankind. How many are sons of Adam? Every one of us is a son of Adam. Every one of us is a son and daughter of Eve. We are sons of Adam and daughters of Eve. And we're all sons of Noah. And every one of us is a son of Noah. And Noah had 3 sons. Every one of us here is of one of the sons of Noah. You are either of Larry, Moore, or Curly. Those are the 3 sons of Noah, Larry, Moore, and Curly. Or the good, the bad, and the ugly. Whatever it is you want to go to. But anyways, Yeshua said that the Sabbath was made for man. We weren't made for the Sabbath. We weren't made to follow and to be subservient to the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made to serve us. There's a lot of people that say, call the Sabbath queen. We're doing this for the Sabbath queen. Let me tell you, the Sabbath is no queen. The Sabbath is a servant. The Sabbath was made to serve you. How does the Sabbath serve you? Right now the Sabbath is serving you because we're in sacred assembly. Yeah. We're going to come after this, we're going to eat. Yeah. By the way, eating is part of the doctrine. Eating is part of the doctrine. And in the early church, there's 4 pillars. In Acts 2:38, when it talks about the 3,000, remember the 3,000 that were saved? It says, these remained faithful to the apostles' doctrine, to the fellowship, which is koinonia in Greek there, to the eating, and to the prayers. So eating, what we call oneg, some people call it potluck, that's one of the parts of the faithfulness of the early church. They all ate together. And that's what we need to be doing. And so the Sabbath gets us all together once a week so we could have family time. You know, family time is good time. And the family of the body of Messiah, because let me tell you, they say blood is thicker than water. I'm going to tell you something here. The blood of Messiah is thicker than even human blood and water. And this gathers us in the blood of Messiah. Now, Yeshua also said there, in the next verse, therefore the Son of Man, meaning himself, is master also of the Sabbath. Your King James says he's the Lord of the Sabbath. He's the master of the Sabbath. If at any time Yeshua wanted to cancel Sabbath, this would have been it. This was opportunity. From now on, you don't have to keep it. No. When you're master of something, it doesn't mean that you let it go. No, you're still over it. So Yeshua controls the Sabbath. And because I am a disciple of Yeshua, and he kept the Sabbath, and he didn't take it away, then I need to be following also the Sabbath. The Kehillah at Jerusalem, for Moses has always had his preachers, and in every town, and is read aloud in the synagogues every Sabbath. By the way, this right now is a synagogue. A synagogue is the Greek word for gathering together. Are we gathered together? Yes. Then we're a synagogue. The name of the place in the early church for the gathering was not the church. Today we say we're going to church. No, in the early Messianic community, they said we're going to synagogue. That's why James says, when someone comes into your synagogue, he doesn't say when someone comes into your church. He says when someone comes into your synagogue. And he says it's a rich man. And a rich man comes into your synagogue. You don't say, oh, come over here and sit at the best place. And then un pobrecito comes in. And you tell him, oh, just go sit in the back over there. No. James says, you know, everybody's to be treated equally. But when someone comes into your synagogue. Now we are the Kehillah, the assembly, the Ecclesia. Iglesia in Spanish is a good word. But we're not the church. We're the body of Messiah. We're the assembly. We're the assembly of Elohim. The assembly of Messiah. Paul uses many times. But the place where you meet is a synagogue. So if you want to use the word synagogue for this, you are welcome to do that. A building that is set aside for gathering for any purpose in Greece is a synagogue. The Torah and the prophets, do not imagine, Yeshua says, I come to abolish the Torah and the prophets. I have not come to abolish, but to complete them. And I wish I'm running out of time here, but I wish I could really spend more time in these. In Acts 24:14, watch what Paul says. When the governor Felix, they brought Paul in front of the governor Felix for what he was doing. And Paul says, what I do admit to, that it isn't according as they described us as a sect. They were called a sect of Judaism. They were called Haderech, the way. I worship the Elohim of my fathers in all points. Look at this. My belief in all points of Torah and the writings of the prophets. So both Yeshua did not abolish the Torah or the prophets. Paul says, I believe every point in the Torah and the prophets. A lot of people don't realize this, but Paul followed even the sacrificial system of the temple after the resurrection of Yeshua. Did you know that Paul sacrificed? Peter sacrificed? John sacrificed after the resurrection of Yeshua. The sacrifice, they didn't say, well, Christ has been dead and resurrected, so therefore we don't have to do that anymore. No, they didn't say that. They followed that. Paul sacrifices. Paul does this. So the Torah is still in effect, let me tell you. So the only reason we don't sacrifice is one major reason. We don't have a temple. The Romans destroyed the temple. There's no high priest, there's no king, there's no authority. Even in Israel today, there's no authority. Yes, it's run democratically, but that's modern. It needs to be run as a theocracy where Adonai is in charge. And we went through this last night, and I wish we could have more time here, but I want to go to, we followed this last night, we did this last night, right here. I'm going to close with this part, and one of the things that I'm going to do is every one of you has this chart. One of the questions, I believe it was Isaac or somebody asked the question about Yeshua the Passover. And I built this chart last night, and this is Yeshua's Passover week. Now, Yeshua's week began on the Sabbath on the 10th of Aviv of the first month, and that's when they selected the lamb. But in this chart, I want you to see, this is the Gregorian calendar we follow. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And so today in the world, we're on a Saturday. But in Scripture, we're on the seventh day. Now, notice that the days begin at midnight. In the Gregorian calendar, the days are offset because they follow the world today, and the Gregorian calendar follows a midnight to midnight schedule. But the Bible, the Scriptures follow a sundown to sundown schedule. And they go by the third day of the week, the fourth day, the fifth day, the sixth day, the seventh day. Today tomorrow is the first day of the week. Tomorrow is not the weekend, tomorrow is the week start. And so then we start again with second day, third day. They don't use Tuesday, Wednesday. By the way, in Spanish, Latin and Spanish, these are, lunes is the day of the moon, martes, Mars, we have Mercury, we have Jupiter, we have Venus, and again Saturn, and the sun. So we have the planets or the pagan, the names of the pagan, but in Hebrew we have this. Now when Yeshua died, it was the 14th of Aviv, the first month, Nisan, some people call it. That is Passover day. Now, every day begins in the dark and in the day, night and day. At sundown, this gray bar right here in between every day, that's between the two evenings. From the time the sun goes down in the horizon to the time it gets dark. And then it's dark, and then midnight, and then the wee hours of the morning, and then the sunshine there. Well, on between the 13th and the 14th, Yeshua had his Seder, the Passover meal. And then he went to Gethsemane at about midnight, and then he is in prayer, he is arrested, and the trials take place in the wee hours of the morning. And then in the third hour at 9 a.m., he is crucified. At noon, the sun gets dark, and then at 3 p.m., he dies, and then by 6 p.m. they do the Tahara, which is the ritual burial in Israel. So Yeshua did his Passover at the beginning of the Passover day, and he dies on a Wednesday. Yeshua actually dies on a Wednesday, not a Good Friday. Everybody says it's Good Friday. No, it was a Good Wednesday. He died on a Wednesday, and he was buried. Right away, he was buried. And he was buried on what is called the first day of unleavened bread. So we have the Seder, him doing the Passover Seder, and then in the day he dies, and then he is buried. As the sun is going down, he's buried. So he dies over here. But watch this. Yeshua says over here in Matthew 12, that as Jonah was in the heart of the great fish 3 days and 3 nights, so the Son of Man will be in the heart of the earth 3 days and 3 nights. And so Yeshua was night 1, day 1, night 2, day 2, night 3, day 3. And so he was buried 3 days and 3 nights. Then he is resurrected, not on Sunday morning. He's actually resurrected on what we call Saturday night. Saturday night in Hebrew is the first day of the week. To us, Saturday is the last day of the week, but in the Bible, in Scripture, Saturday night, look at this, Saturday night is the first day of the week of the 18th, and that's the day that Yeshua was resurrected. Now watch this. Passover is the first appointment, the first moed. Unleavened bread is the second moed, but the third moed is the Feast of First Fruits. Yeshua died on Passover. He was resurrected, and he was buried on unleavened bread, and he was resurrected on a feast day. On a feast day. 3 days and 3 nights. And that's when the resurrection took place. And then the apostles, and it's not too clear over here on the board, but you have a chart, and there were the apostles that see him, Cleopas, the women. In fact, it was Mary Magdalene that first saw him. Remember, he resurrected on Saturday night. When Mary Magdalene came in before sunrise, it was still dark, the gospel says. All of a sudden, the stone had been rolled away. It was open. By the way, Yeshua didn't open it so that he could come out. He didn't need to. He came out already. He was out already. The angel opened it so Mary and the apostles could go in and see that he was risen. It wasn't this blast that you see, and all of a sudden Yeshua comes out. No, he was out already. In fact, Yeshua was out from the evening. And the first thing that Yeshua does after he goes out, after his resurrection, not when he was dead, but after the resurrection, Yeshua goes out, and what he does is he preaches to the captives that are in prison. After his resurrection, not when he was, in a sense, dead in between these 3 days. By the way, the moment Yeshua died, the moment he closed his eyes in death on the cross, he opened his eyes in the resurrection. And that's what's going to happen to you. The moment you die and you close your eyes, all of a sudden you're opening your eyes, and the rapture, the resurrection is taking place immediately. You're not going to go to heaven and spend 200 years there twiddling your thumbs or playing a harp or whatever. No, the moment you die, you wake up and you are standing before Adonai. And so this chart is of vital importance. And in the question and answer time, we could go through this. Let's go ahead and stand before Adonai. I thank you.